Welcome to all present here for the celebration of World Lupus Day 2022. I greet each and every one of you present here, the forbearing, tenacious patients, the beacons, our dear doctors, and the parents of grit and courage, and all others who hold the empathy and identification with the cause of such an important group with an important mission. I now invite the guests for today's function. With immense honor, I would like to welcome Dr. Dharmanand sir, the President of Indian Rheumatology Association, to today's celebration. Dr. Dharmanand sir has been one of the most active doctors to fight for patient rights and to bring in the involvement of public figures for the spread of awareness of rheumatic diseases. He has championed the cause of patient education and advocacy, and under his able guidance, the leadership team of IRA is setting new standards and goals for this project. We are delighted and excited at the same time to work under his guidance for the common cause, that is patient education and advocacy. On behalf of Lupus Trust India, I welcome you, sir. Thank you for your gracious presence. I am profusely elated to take an opportunity to welcome our beloved doctor and mentor, Dr. Padmanabha Shenoy, Clinical Director and Consultant Rheumatologist at Dr. Shenoy's Care, Center for Arthritis and Rheumatism Excellence. Today, Lupus Trust India is a group creating impact due to his guidance and mentorship through these years and every step. Welcome, Doctor. I now, with immense joy, invite Dr. Kaveri Nalianda, Consultant Rheumatologist at Dr. Shenoy's Care, Kochi. Her special interest has always been in SLE, and she has been serving Dr. Shenoy's Care and the patients there with utmost alertness and dedication. On this momentous occasion, I'm more than joyous to introduce Naveen Ennis, our patient advocate and leader from Delhi, and we'll figure out more about him towards the latter end. We'll also be announcing the Best Volunteer Award towards the end of the show. It is with joy and satisfaction that I present before you the various accomplishments and activities of our trust, the Lupus Trust India, which we formed in 2018 as a public charitable trust. I can gladly say that with the first important milestone or accomplishment was a group which started with just 5 members, gradually increasing in strength to reach around 600 plus of like-minded fighters who are willing to contribute to the lupus community. Without wasting time, I'd like to get into the activities and achievements of Lupus Trust India during the years 21-22, which have been made possible by the cooperation and contribution from each one of you. In the year 2020-21, online events were conducted with 500 plus participants pan-India that was organized during the 2 years of the peak COVID lockdown. There are many patients who drop out of treatment on the initial phase or diagnosis itself, only because they cannot afford the cost of treatment. To overcome this challenge, a fund for the needy called Lupus Arogya Fund was inaugurated in 2019. Donation efforts were initiated, which were utilized for the timely medical support of seriously ill patients. Information posters were made available in 4 major Indian languages. This year, 2022, marked the making of 15 patient videos where patients shared their experiences, and it was released on all social media platforms, thus making lupus visible and breaking the stigma attached to it. 45 patient education posters were published in English, Hindi, and other Northeastern languages on all our social media platforms. Various collaborations were done with the Indian Rheumatology Association and various other patient leader groups that were initiated to get various rheumatic diseases under one umbrella for the ease of advocacy and patient rights. We also launched a series of videos with Dr. Shenoy that were creating awareness on various manifestations of lupus in all our social media platforms. Patient counseling is something we do very regularly on a weekly basis for the newly diagnosed and those facing new challenges. Celebrities like Ms. Kajal Agarwal, Ms. Mamta Mohandas, Ms. Aparna Balamurali themselves have offered their wholehearted support. It was by the continuing efforts of Lupus Trust India that the gravity and seriousness of autoimmune condition, SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, ended to give rise to the series of progressive steps which could go support the lupus community in collaboration with policymakers. A detailed appeal was sent to the Kerala Health Minister regarding SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, its consequences and effects on health, the catastrophic health expenditure incurred by the treatment, which is long lasting. The approximate statistical details were also sent across. The kind of medication employed for this treatment, the non-availability and aspects of various medicines essential for the remission. We've also put forward, a couple of requests and appeals to the Kerala government. One, all patients should have access to the respective medications needed for their situation. All patients should be facilitated with medical insurance. All patients should have free treatment in government hospitals and colleges. The SLE patients should be brought under the category of patients with disabilities and critical illness category. The good news is the Health Ministry has taken this appeal into consideration and given us a response that they would study the appeal in detail and get back to us at the earliest. We have been following up for the last 2 years. In the meantime, the CMDRF funds, the Chief Minister Disaster Relief Funds, has also been able to release adequate funds for proper request attested by the registered medical officer for various lupus patients. Government has decided to offer free treatment for deserving patients in the medical district Taluk hospitals in Thrissur. We are also very excited to announce there's going to be a Bangalore Walkathon happening on the 15th of May, 2022. So these achievements should further propel us to meet the important goals, the mission and vision of Lupus Trust India, what it stands for. We have to work systematically towards these goals. If accomplished, could bring sea change in the support we can experience at the patients and caregiver level. On behalf of all the trustees and each and every lupus patient, I thank Dr. Shenoy from the bottom of our heart for unrelentingly supporting us, and making this event possible. I'd now request Dr. Dharmanand sir to address the patients and deliver the inaugural address.
Good morning. Thank you, watchers, and your dynamic team for making this event happen. And I am in practice for last 25 years. The treatment of lupus has evolved enormously in the last 25 years from a very serious life-threatening disease to it has become a chronic disease which needs to be monitored and treated on a long-term basis. And it also affects women predominantly in their prime of their life. It affects every aspect of a girl's career, from studies to choosing a career, marriage, pregnancy, and post-pregnancy issues. So every aspect of a woman's life is touched by this disease. And thankfully, a lot of research is happening in this field from a very average level of treatment available when we joined as a rheumatologist 94, 95. The progress has been enormous. That as doctors, we have learned to treat this disease much better way and also minimize the side effects of steroids, and which steroids are generally dreaded by the patients because it definitely causes a lot of issues, particularly physical effects of steroid is dreaded by young patients, both men and women. And as Indian Rheumatology Association, we have been participating in patient education programs during World Lupus Days since many years. In the last 1 year, a couple of years, we have made a very directed effort to increase the public awareness about the rheumatic diseases, including lupus. And also, we are trying to form a loose federation of all patient support groups. And we offered our services as a knowledge partner. And also, we definitely want to help and assist the patient support groups, including lupus groups, in improving the healthcare and in increasing the access to healthcare, and also include rheumatic diseases in various insurance and government schemes. So we have had few meetings in the recent past, and I hope that the momentum leads us to much better results for patients with rheumatic diseases. And lupus is a particularly interesting disease because as an immunologist and a rheumatologist, this disease has been very intriguing. It can be as complicated as the life. If you look at the life of a butterfly, it's very complicated. So this lupus can be as complicated. Another symbol of lupus is a wolf. So it can sometimes bite as hard as a wolf. So in spite of the current advances, there is still a lot of unmet needs, particularly when somebody has severe lupus nephritis or nervous system lupus nephritis. Sometimes the nervous system lupus, it can be very refractory to currently available treatment. Then we need to access some of the medications which are phenomenally expensive, and most of our Indian patients cannot afford it. So the drugs have to become cheaper. The government has to give us tax rebates, import facilities. So these are all the areas we should be working on. And as a rheumatologist, we always feel that lupus patients are our best patients. They are like our daughters and sisters. And so I have seen patients 25 years ago as a kid. Now many of them are doctors, engineers, and lawyers and whatnot, and mothers, and with proudly have a couple of kids. So that we see as like we have grown with them, and they become like our family. So we have some emotional attachment to patients with lupus vis-a-vis patients with other diseases, because we see them as young children, and when we see them growing, and we see them and probably handhold them during their periods of difficult flares. And when we see them after 15, 20 years with a lot of achievements, and we feel very proud of them. So with these few words, I wish the Lupus Trust and your meeting a grand success, and I'm happy to inaugurate. And also my request is to, if there are few more groups of lupus in India, independently in various states, try to form a loose federation and have a united front, so that the strength of any association is with the amount of members, and if it's a pan-Indian presence, then we can represent to the central government and other regional governments in a much stronger footing. With these few words, I'm happy to inaugurate this great function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I would now like to request Dr. Shenoy to kindly address our gathering.
So good morning. Thank you. So Dharman sir has covered, he has seen the journey over 25 years, how lupus treatment has evolved. And the biggest challenge, as sir said, is to have patient advocacy, convincing the government, convincing the society that such a disease exists. For example, why certain diseases which are much less common than lupus get so much attention is because patients are making noises, patients are making voices heard, noises and voices which are heard. And always we should understand that unless we make a right voice and to the right pitch to the right people, we will never be heard. See, if you look at many of the cancers, they are much less than common than even our lupus. Type 1 diabetes, much less than almost similar frequency of lupus, or even less common. But they are getting more attention, more help from the government because of the patient advocacy. Definitely, as a group, we need to do this. Go to the government, say we need help, because there are a lot of new molecules being launched across world. Anti-interferon therapies, belimumab, these drugs are not available in our country for our patients' benefit. So government needs to subsidize them, make them accessible to our patients. That is one part of it. Similarly, every government hospital should have facility to treat these diseases and all the government schemes, be it Ayushman Bharat, be it all other schemes, should cover the treatment of lupus. This will only happen when the public awareness increases regarding these diseases. And the awareness has lagged because of a single fact. The rheumatology in the country has taken up at a later date than other specialties. Last 20 years, it has been flourishing. Last 10, 15 years, as Dharman sir told, has shown a remarkable progress in the treatment, diagnosis, pathogenesis, and also the treatment prospects of lupus. There were days when diagnosing lupus, ANA was very difficult in early 90s and early 2000s also. Getting an ANA done in a tier 2 city was so difficult. From that, we have moved on to biologicals and newer therapies and state-of-the-art facility. I can very clearly say that Indian patients do almost as well as most of them get state-of-the-art therapy for lupus, and they do extremely well. So, but we should never forget that the most important challenge in all our lupus patients is delay in diagnosis or access to care. Although the drugs are available, treatment is available, effective therapy is available, most of the time diagnosis get delayed. And sometimes patients are not able to afford the therapy because of the cost. These are the two major challenges our patients across country face. So where does Lupus Trust India come and where it can happen? As Dharman sir very clearly told throughout his speech, we need to do patient government advocacy. We have to create advocacy. We have to go represent ourselves to the government. But similarly, Lupus Trust India has so many other roles to create awareness among patients. See, when a doctor says that lupus is this, lupus is that, lupus can cause skin or kidney involvement, it can cause serious disease, we have to take drug. The impact will be much less than a patient coming and telling, I have lupus, these were my manifestations, and I am taking drug, and I can overcome, I can do this. That creates a huge impact, not only to the mind of fellow patients, but to the society too. So I think patients has to come forward to spread the awareness. We can all pitch in and play our part, be it in media, be it in public space. Awareness meetings, awareness things, doctors can support. And primary role has to be with patients, because the moment the patient pitches in their part, they will, society is willing to listen. Similarly, if a young lupus patient, whenever we get 2 to 3 new lupus patients every week or more than that, when a new lupus patient comes to us, they're all very anxious because they have never heard somebody who has lupus. They have never heard, they don't know what lupus is. They're all very anxious. They will go online, they will browse, they will see some stories, they will get scared. And we say that lupus is treatable, they may believe it. But the moment they see another patient with lupus, and the other patient with lupus explains the journey, it is a remarkable difference. For example, I can go online and see how to roam around in Paris and what to see. But X, Y, or Z who has gone to Paris and tells me, this is the places you have to go, this 5 sentences he tells me, that's much more powerful than my 3 hours of browsing. Similarly, a lupus patient explaining the journey to another lupus patient is very, very, very powerful. And it's extremely important. I keep seeing this. A lot of people are hesitant to come out and tell their stories. They have their personal reasons. But definitely, if somebody is willing and they come forward and tell their story to other fellow lupus patients and be part of this big trust, what happens is it will go a long way in alleviating pain and suffering of other patients. Always, when we share the sorrow of one to another, it becomes lesser. So give a helping hand to somebody who is suffering, not only financially, emotionally, just talk to them. So what I think is, if a new lupus patient is diagnosed, keep a mentor for them, keep a helping hand for initial 3 months, which will go a long way. For example, identify 10 or 15 or 20 volunteers who can speak 5 minutes a week to their family, to a new lupus patient. Because in lupus, most of the lupus patients have the most difficult phase during initial 3 or 6 months. when they are newly diagnosed, when they are on dose of steroids. Once the steroids come out, they are off steroids. Most of them do well unless they flare again. So helping hand, or you can name it some way. So that will be one thing which Lupus Trust can do. Another thing definitely Lupus Trust should be doing is giving financial assistance at the time of crisis. We are doing it for a smaller number of patients, but we need corporate funds to come to this. Some funding. There should be a proper mechanism. All these things needs to be worked upon. I am sure we can really do a great thing in this. And last but not the least, all the lupus patients should be aware of whatever new is happening. So we should have a loose newsletter. That each newsletter we can have a patient story along with what is new research, a doctor's article, that kind of stuff. Every monthly, every 2 to 3 issues per year should do. So I think Lupus Trust has a lot of job to do, and we need a lot of volunteering. Volunteering is the most important thing. You have to. I don't think you should spend 5 to 10 minutes of your day for Lupus Trust. That will go a long way. We spend so much time on Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, reading, listening to a lot of videos. But if you can do, each one of you can spend some time of every day for Lupus Trust, it will go a long way, not only in alleviating your pain, but it will be a helping lot of other people. And so these are the things I thought I should tell you. But Lupus Trust has been a great initiative. Although last 2 years we were in limbo because of COVID, now things are much better. As a group, we need to move forward. And I'm sure with Dharman sir's leadership and IRS support, we'll go long way. And with pan-India presence, and I think a lot of state chapters have been already formed. And I keep seeing a lot of volunteers. But my biggest request to everyone is that everyone starts off, but what we need is the continued participation. It is like first day you will do a lot of things. After 3 weeks, you should not become that I am not interested. That kind of a leadership quality should come. You should include more people so that it becomes a group, becomes bigger, and spread positive message about lupus and help everyone to fight this disease. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I would now like to request Kaveri ma'am, Dr. Kaveri ma'am, to kindly join us for the question answer session. So we had collected a survey online from various patients to, get a handful of questions that were of major concern, ma'am. And one of the, so can we start with the question answer, ma'am? I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, yes, Vachis. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I clear? Yeah, okay.
Very clear. So yes, over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. And I'm very happy to be here as part of the Lupus Day celebrations. I apologize in advance if we couldn't take all the questions that were asked because of time constraints, but we selected a few and we thought we'll go ahead and discuss these. So let's move ahead without further ado. So the first question that was asked was, can lupus nephritis be cured, and is a kidney transplant inevitable? Now, the short answer to this would be no, but I would like to explain in a little more detail. Now, lupus, we have not advanced to such an extent that lupus and cure can be mentioned in the same breath. However, advances are significant in that the disease can be controlled and completely made quiet, whereby all the strong immunosuppressants, the steroids can be stopped, and the patient can be managed and maintained on very minimal medications, which allows them to have a good quality of life. So lupus nephritis can be well controlled rather than cured. What we call it is going into a period of long-term remission. Now, the only way that that can be done is when it is picked up early, when it is hit hard, and when it is well controlled, because the inflammation in the kidneys is what ultimately leads to damage. Now, the inflammation is reversible, but the damage is not. So once a damage happens, then that is when you need a kidney transplant. So all our efforts when we see patients is to control the inflammation as quickly and as aggressively as possible. So the crux of the issue is always early diagnosis. Early diagnosis of lupus nephritis, good compliance with medications, better the outcomes. And no, a kidney transplant is not at all inevitable. In fact, most of our patients lead completely normal life with good kidney functions for a very long period to come. kidney transplant occurs in a minority of cases where for various reasons, they are not able to take the medications properly, or the diagnosis was delayed, the initial treatment was not aggressive. So these are the times when damage occurs and then you require a transplant. So let's move on to the next question. The next one is, what is the average time period taken to diagnose SLE? Now, this is fairly variable. It can be a few months to a couple of years, but a few studies have shown that roughly the time taken to diagnose SLE is actually around 24 months, which is about 2 years. And that is a long period of time in an autoimmune disease like lupus, where there's so much of inflammation going on in different organ systems, because inflammation ultimately leads to damage. And when damage happens, there is not much we can do. So it also depends on the degree of awareness in the community. Now, if the awareness among the non-specialty health professionals as well as in the public is higher about lupus, then the time taken to diagnosis also comes down. So we have seen patients who come in within a few months, within 1 or 2 months of onset of symptoms. At the same time, we see patients who come in after about 2 years, after trying different doctors, going to different health professionals, alternative medicines, and finally they end up with a rheumatologist. So what we need to do is to bring down the time period taken to diagnose. So the faster the diagnosis, the better the outcomes. In fact, if the diagnosis from the initial symptom of lupus happens within 6 months, then the number of flares, the amount of damage, outcomes are much, much better. Whereas later diagnosis always causes more of a problem. Another issue with early lupus is that the symptoms and signs of early lupus, it could be fevers, weight loss, loss of appetite, they all mimic a large number of diseases. So it's difficult often to differentiate early lupus from other conditions. It may take more of an experienced eye to actually pick up these symptoms and say, oh, this could possibly lupus, and we may have to test. And another issue is that with early lupus, the ANA often is negative, and that tends to be a red herring, where people think that because it is ANA negative, it's unlikely to be lupus. So early signs are often difficult to differentiate, which is why it takes a longer time taken to diagnose. But we are now trying to increase the awareness. That is the purpose of these awareness sessions, to increase the awareness in the community as well as the non-specialty health professionals, so that this time period from 2 years can be reduced to a few months. So I hope that answers the question. Let's move on to the next one. This is a question which is often asked by a lot of patients. What aspects of diet need care in lupus? Now, we don't have a specific lupus diet per se, and we always advise all our patients to have a well-balanced, nutritionally rich, varied diet, which should have a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, poultry, fish, nuts, and dairy products. There are no specific food restrictions in lupus, unless, of course, you have diabetes along with it, which may be steroid induced or otherwise, in which case you need to control your sugars. Or if you have renal involvement, kidney involvement, or you have renal damage, in which case you need to cut down things like red meat and potassium containing food items. Otherwise, we just advocate a nutritionally rich and a well-balanced and varied diet. Now, I would suggest including omega-3 fatty acids, because generally omega-3 fatty acids are believed to have very good general health benefits are good. It also is believed to reduce inflammation. And you can include this as part of a balanced diet. And the sources of omega-3 fatty acids would be fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, trout, as well as lots of nuts, flax seeds. Vitamin D should be a part of your diet, because as you know, all of our patients are advised sun protection, and because of the risk of flares of lupus. Now, the problem with protecting yourself from the sun is that the sunlight is what is needed to synthesize the vitamin D in the body. So when you do not have enough sunlight exposure, the amount of vitamin D in the body synthesized is less. And we do not have very rich sources of vitamin D dietarily. So vitamin D supplementation is found to not only improve cardiovascular health, but it also improves bone health. It decreases fatigue. It is also believed to some extent, not completely proven, to reduce the risk of flares. So vitamin D should be a part of your diet. A lot of issues, a big issue that people with lupus have is when they are on steroids is weight gain and how to control the weight and how to decrease the weight. Because as the steroids get tapered and stopped, the weight automatically generally tends to come back to normal. But what I would probably advise is something like a food diary. When you have a food diary and you write down what you've taken in through the entire day, you're able to see what needs attention, what you've binged on, what you've taken excess of. Probably take the help of a nutritionist as well, because a nutritionist will be able to advise you as to what kinds of food items you can have when you have this urge to snack. What are the nutritionally rich but low calorie food articles that you can actually take. I would also like to highlight the fact that it's a fallacy to think that there are certain food items which cause a trigger of lupus. No, there is nothing like that. We don't restrict or prohibit patients from taking any kind of food. But this can vary from individual to individual. For instance, some people may feel that if they eat chicken or they eat egg, it tends to cause a worsening of their symptoms, like it causes a worsening of their joints or some other symptoms, or increases their fatigue. That is individual. So if you feel that you have an issue with a particular food item, you remove that from your diet. But this cannot be generalized. Herbs and dietary supplements. If you're planning to include herbs and dietary supplements, make sure you involve your health professional, your doctor, your rheumatologist in that, because a lot of these dietary supplements contain substances which are not very safe, which may interact with the medications that you're already on for lupus, and they may cause other problems and worsen the problems like liver disease and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful when you include herbs and dietary supplements. Make sure you involve your doctor. And I don't think I can leave this question about diet without mentioning exercise. All lupus patients need to exercise. It could be small amounts of exercise. It could be up to moderate amounts of activity. Let your body be the guide as to what you can do and what you want to do. Choose an exercise program which allows you to have some degree of aerobic activity, which also strengthens your muscles. Now, this could be yoga, this could be swimming, cycling, walking. But as always, use your body as a guide to decide on what exercise program is best for you. So in summary, there is no specific lupus diet. Please take a diet which is well balanced and varied. It should have lots of fruits, vegetables, grains, fish, poultry, nuts, and omega-3 fatty acids. Let's go on to the next question. What are the chances that lupus can affect a child whose mother has lupus? Now, the susceptibility of getting lupus is always higher when you have a close family member with lupus, and this is not a given. Even in identical twins, where the likelihood of developing the disease, if one twin has the disease, there's only a 50% chance that the other twin gets the disease, which means to say that though you're susceptible, it is not 100%, 50%, 25% chance that the child will have lupus. The chances are actually small, just a 1 to 5% chance that a mother with lupus will have a child who later on goes on to develop lupus. This is because there are a lot of factors which contribute to the development of lupus. Of course, there is a genetic predisposition, but you have to have something we call a second hit or an environmental factor. When the environmental factor is also met with, like it could be an infection, it could be some food item, it could be pollution, something which actually triggers the autoimmune process. So it's genetics plus an environmental trigger. So the chances that a child develops lupus is minimal, 1 to 5%. That is why we generally suggest that if a mother or a parent has lupus, we don't advise autoantibody testing in the child. It just increases the tension and the anxiety. For the reason, hello? So unless the child, of course, develops signs and symptoms, otherwise, leave the child alone. They're healthy, let them live their lives. Because if a mother has ANA, it is quite likely that the child also is ANA positive. But ANA positive by itself does not mean a thing. it does not translate into disease, because 5% of the general population also has ANA positivity. So unless the child develops any signs and symptoms, do not go ahead and test. So in short, the chances that lupus can affect a child are small. It's only 1 to around 5% chance. Moving on to the next question, lupus and choosing a career path. How to channelize limited energy into bread and butter? I found this question very interesting and quite general. So I was wondering how to answer this. And I think the crux of this question here is in the term limited energy, because fatigue is a big problem that lupus patients face. It can be, it can completely destabilize their lives. They are not able to have enough energy to do all that they want to do. It's there in the mind. They want to do all these things, but their body doesn't allow them to. So we have to first try to address this problem of fatigue. Now, fatigue can be due to multiple reasons. It could be due to disease activity. It could be due to anemia. You could be having a thyroid issue. You could be having poor sleep, or it could be due to mental stressors, anxiety, depression. So a lot of these factors can contribute to fatigue in lupus. So we have to first address and find out what is causing the fatigue and try to sort that out. But despite that, in a lot of patients, when all of these are corrected, they still have tiredness, in which case then we have to learn how to deal with it. And the best way of dealing with fatigue is to learn to pace and rest yourself. You have to pace yourself around this problem of fatigue. So first, when you choose a career path, point one, I think, would be to choose something which enthuses you, which interests you, which engrosses you. Because when you're doing something that you love, you do not pay attention to what's going around you. So I'm not saying that will remove the fatigue completely, but you'll minimize it. It's part of your life, but you'll sort of push it into the corner and say, yes, I'm going to deal with it. So choose a career or choose a path which enthuses you and interests you, and then learn to pace yourself. Pacing and rest are very important. So if you have to work during the day, maybe you can work for a couple of hours in the morning and then take a mid-morning break. And then you work for a couple of hours in the late morning and then take a more restful lunch break. It also plays, it also is very important that you involve your employers in this process. It's very difficult. A lot of you, most of you, in fact, often lead lonely journeys. You struggle to explain it to your employees, struggle to explain it to your friends, but it's worth making an attempt to involve them also, to explain how things are. And you have employers who are supportive, who can allow you to work flexibly. You should have a safe working environment. Make sure that you're not, especially if you're exposed to, you're very sensitive to lights, then harsh fluorescence lights, which will require shades, or avoid exposure to direct sunlight and use sun protective measures. And also, again, I would emphasize incorporate some degree of exercise, but this tends to mitigate fatigue. So choose a career path which would first of all interest you, which you want to do. Secondly, learn to pace and rest yourself. Third, involve your employers in the process. Fourth, join support groups because you get a lot of support. Fifth, access resources online. The Lupus Foundation of America is an excellent resource. lupus.org.uk is very good. They give a lot of advice on how you can deal with limited energy, fatigue, and at the same time, handle a successful career. I thought, carrying on from this question, I thought I would read an excerpt from a memoir of a patient who also had lupus from the age of 30, and she's battled this for a greater part of her life. I found the memoir interesting as well as quite moving, so I thought I'll read an excerpt from it. What she writes is, the real challenge comes at my workplace, the stress and struggle to educate people on what it is like to live with lupus. I have faced many people, including my family members, who doubt the veracity of my illness, believing it is all in my head. This is extremely painful and frustrating, causing anger and resentment. Thankfully, I have a boss who understands what autoimmune diseases are like and what they can do to someone. So I'm provided flexibility at work. This arrangement has helped me a lot in terms of managing my professional life with lupus. So this is from a real patient who has actually struggled with the disease and who is working successfully. So it is definitely possible. I'd like to, I extracted a few more lines, which I thought were quite moving. And she writes to say, on the outside, most of us look happy and healthy, but on the inside, we are fighting for our lives. I may have lupus, but lupus does not have me. So, dear friends, I know it's a long journey. I know it's very hard and difficult at times, but please believe that we are there with you to support you on this long journey with you, and always stay strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaveri, ma'am. I don't know, I feel like every one of us here finally feel probably understood and empathized to another level. And keeping in mind the rheumatologist to patient ratio we have in our country, it's almost impossible to get that time to clarify our doubts and understand and even talk to our doctors. And this has really helped us. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah. Moving on to the next program. On this momentous occasion, I am more than joyous to introduce Naveen NS, our patient advocate and leader from Delhi. As a mechanical engineer and a startup enthusiast based out of Delhi, he was working and living an athletic life. When he was faced with an unprecedented challenge in the year 2020 2021, when he was diagnosed straight away with kidney failure, which he sort of accidentally confronted during a voluntary consultation. He, of course, did have symptoms, which we'll hear from Naveen himself. But after a year of dialysis, followed by a kidney transplant, he has emerged stronger with a purpose to support lupus advocacy. His consistency, decision-making capacity grounded on logic, expertise in laying systems, and to create educational material in such a short stint of time for Lupus Trust India and highly contributing to patient advocacy and materials, he personifies resilience and a very rational, optimistic outlook on life. So I'm excited to have Naveen today. Welcome, Naveen. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vachas, for the lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Lupus Trust India, and good morning, everyone. I feel really humbled to have got this opportunity to share my lupus journey and my thoughts on lupus advocacy with all of you. I was diagnosed with lupus about 1.5 years ago after noticing initial symptoms like shortness of breath, mainly while climbing stairs, feeling loss of appetite and tired throughout the body, throughout the entire day. I sort of decided to go for a routine health checkup. It was at that time I realized that I had severe anemia with a hemoglobin of almost 5 and an extremely abnormal kidney functioning. So my creatinine was almost 11 at that time. The next day, I decided to go and meet a nephrologist. And after undergoing several tests and scans, I was told that I had lupus nephritis, which happens to be one of the most common manifestations of lupus. And I was also told that I had end-stage renal failure with a kidney functioning of less than 10%. So it was quite a challenge at that time. After that, I was put on dialysis, was given cyclophosphamide with a bunch of other biologics and steroids for almost 9 months so that some of my kidney functioning could be revived and I could be taken off from dialysis. But after 9 months of treatment, when things didn't improve, my doctors told me that I would be needing a kidney transplant on immediate basis. So it kind of became a matter of life or death. And thankfully, my mother decided to donate her kidney. And I think that was the ultimate bit of life for me. Today happens to be the 7th month post-transplant. Last year, I got transplant on 8th October 2021. So today is exactly the 7th month post-transplant. And I think I'm doing very good right now, both mentally and physically. Throughout the entire journey, I've had a lot of realizations and a lot of introspection. And I would like to point out a few of those. I think not every lupus patient is fortunate enough to survive a delayed diagnosis and an organ failure. Not every lupus patient is fortunate enough to afford some of the highly priced treatment options available for lupus nephritis and lupus in general. And lastly, not every lupus patient is fortunate as well as lucky enough to find a organ donor and at the same time afford organ transplant surgery at the same time. So when I see these realizations, my biggest takeaways from these realizations is, as a patient leader and patients and caregivers and doctors, it's very important for all of us to unite and work aggressively towards lupus advocacy and lupus awareness, so that people can go and see a doctor right away if they feel they have any symptoms, and hence they can have a better prognosis and a better quality of life. Because at the end of the day, organ transplant is not the best treatment available right now, or rather, it shouldn't be the best treatment option. And the second takeaway is that as patient leaders and doctors and caregivers, we have to go aggressive and influence the policymakers and government officials in terms of insurance and other benefits and schemes, so that the not so privileged lupus patients can afford a better quality of treatment uh, in any part of the country, and hence have a better quality of life. Being that 1%, I can say that I'm 1%. I know that it's really tough for people who can't afford treatment. I've seen people die. So being that 1%, I think it's a very it's one of the biggest takeaways for me. And yeah, just to conclude, this is one of the few reasons why I'm committed towards volunteering Lupus Trust of India. And once again, thank you so much, Lupus Trust of India, for giving me this opportunity. I wish you good health. Everyone good health and prosperity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naveen. I'm sure everyone hearing this right now is probably shell-shocked and also, seasoned with inspiration. It's stunning that in 1 year you had dialysis, you got your transplant, and now you're back to your fitness regime as well. Like you go for your walks, you have your workouts. So it's a huge sign of hope. And thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Padma.
Yeah. So the moment has arrived where we're going to be, declaring our best volunteer award. This year, I am so honored and excited to be telling you that it is this young lady from Kanpur who was diagnosed with lupus almost 10, 12 years ago, had a very tough journey, and yet managed to do her post-graduation and now runs her own digital marketing company. Exemplary, isn't it? Inspiring as well to a lot of us, to most of us, every one of us. And I would like to request our winner, Shreya Shukla, to join us right now. Shreya, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Ajay, for this introduction. And on this note, I would really like to add few little lines. I speak less actually. So thank you so much. Actually, so 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with lupus, and it took me 3 years to come to the diagnosis. It was a tough time, and faced a lot of things, but I was not having similar kind of patients. I was not. This world was alien to me. So I figured it out all by myself how to manage things and stuff, because so few things you can't share with parents also to not make them upset or stuff. So I figured it out, and now I'm managing my own agency, and it's a big thing for me. So after all this, I realized I should share what I have learned through these many years with patients, and I'm sharing through my pages. I'm consulting them. So this feels good. This feels an achievement to help someone and make someone smile, or to present these problems in a funny way, so those people don't feel alone or something like that. So I'm glad that I'm part of Lupus Trust, and I can help more people through this. Plus, I want to thank Lupus Trust India people, because now I don't wish that people get diagnosed with lupus, but if someone new lupus patients, they have people they can share things with. They have people who will understand what they are going through. So that's a big thing, and I'm happy to be a part of this, and I would love to contribute my efforts and time. Even I'm doing my work, I have always have time for this thing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Shreya. I think you've totally, it's such a ray of hope for us to see that you're balancing your work. You're an entrepreneur and you're working and you're contributing to trust through translations, the creatives. And yeah, thank you once again and congratulations. I would now like to invite Suzanne Sangi for a minute. She's one of our patient leaders from Karnataka, handling the Lupus Trust India's Karnataka chapter. And she's been a dear, dear friend, not just because of lupus, but the fact that we discuss politics, we discuss everything. And so, yeah, lupus has given me a handful of wonderful friends, And so, welcome, Susie. Over to you. If you could just take a minute and tell us about the Karnataka chapter. And yeah, over to you.
Hi, Vachas. Thank you so much for that sweet introduction. I want to thank all the doctors here today for such enlightening speeches and also giving us so much crucial information. So I've lived with lupus for around 3 years with aggressive kidney damage due to late diagnosis. And because of that, I've been really passionate for awareness and advocacy. So I started a support group for patients here in Karnataka and Bangalore in early 2019 under the guidance of Lupus Trust India and the close mentorship of Vachas. So we conducted the first walkathon in 2019, which was a huge success with about 100 people turned up and a lot of media buzz around major newspapers and radio, and many patients got to interact with each other as well. And so this year too, we are planning for a big walkathon, as Vachas mentioned, which is spearheaded by Dr. Priyamvada, who's also a patient advocate based here in Bangalore. So whoever's in Bangalore, please join in. I'm also happy to say that we have an active support group on WhatsApp where a lot of new and older patients interact regularly and support each other with medical queries, emotional and mental support. We're also present on social media where lots of patients come with questions and look for a lot of support. So I'm really looking forward for all the activities that are coming up, especially in carrying forward some of the suggestions of the doctors today. I think some of them were really, really good. So thank you to Lupus Trust India and all our dear doctors for all the inspirational work and hope that you give to all lupus patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you once again. I would also like to mention a big shout out to Dr. Priyamvada Madi. She's here with us, but she is the doctor and the lupus patient. She's also the patient of Dr. Dharmanand sir. And so she's probably rushing to her hospital for her posting today, but she is taking active lead in conducting the Lupus Walkathon in Bangalore amidst all the chaos, handling her career, handling her disease, handling lupus, and then the walkathon. So evidently, when there's dedication towards the cause, no matter what, like Dr. Shenoy said, 10 minutes a day dedicating for this cause is all it takes. So thank you once again. So I think we are reaching the end of the event, and I'd like to declare the vote of thanks. So on behalf of all the trustees, patients, and caregivers, I'm glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. A special thanks to our guest of honor, Dr. Dharmanand sir, for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today. Your thoughts have truly inspired us, sir. I thank our beloved doctor, Dr. Padmanabha Shenoy, for always supporting us and guiding us. Our inspiring patient leaders, Naveen, Shreya, Suzanne, Priyamvada, just to name a few, there are fantastic, a lot of you out there, Khadija from Kerala. And, you are the superstars of today. Always put in a lot of effort and love in making each and every poster and patient education material. I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank my fellow trustees with me who are here, who are at Town Hall at Kochi, making sure the offline event is a grand success. Mr. Dinesh Menon, Dr. Indu, Advocate Indulekha Joseph, Azharuddin Salim, Durga, and everyone out there, including my family, who's also a trustee, my brother Krishnadas. I would like to thank Indian Rheumatology Association, Kerala Arthritis and Rheumatism Society, Dr. Shenoy's care. I would also like to thank each and every one of you for being here and making this day a wonderful and memorable one. Thank you once again and wishing you all a very, very happy Lupus Day 2022. Thank you.